Hello, Facebook family. Welcome to Marriage Mondays with Nick and Trina Brinson. Sorry we're a little tardy tonight, but tonight we're going to talk about the 5 love languages by Dr. Gary Chapman and how they're important to your spouse, understanding how you can understand how your spouse can be loved. So we're going to go into that discussion tonight, and hopefully it'll be something out of this discussion that you can use. We are in the process of just being a servant of God as we are on a weekly basis, and to just be a part of your lives. And thank y'all for being a part of ours. So with that said, we're going to go into our discussion, and we just want to welcome you all tonight. So you want to welcome our people. So we're trying some stuff online, and we're trying to get our technology right so we can bring you the best information we possibly can. So we just want to thank our pastors, our First Lady Denise Bush and Bishop Finest Bush with their continued support, and all the people from our church and around our friends and family, and we've actually got some gifts from around the world that tune in and listen to what we bring forth by the grace of God. So with that said, we just want to thank y'all and just continue to support us as we give you the information that we have to give. And for those that are married, you might need to start using some of these things we're talking about to make your spouse feel loved. And we've just been able to get this information to you as we use it in our own marriage relationship, because a lot of stuff that we talk about, we actually put into use, and what you can do to do in your marriage relationship. So with that said, let's get on with the 5 love languages.
Did you acknowledge the church ministry?
I did. The bishop and the first lady.
Okay.
And I
don't think I'm able to fix this.
Okay, so we just won't use it. Now, as we get into this discussion tonight, we've actually done the 5 love languages before, but it's one of those topics that's worthwhile and going back and talking about, because that's one way that when we get new listeners, that's one of the things that can help improve your marriage if you learn how to love your spouse. So you got anything you want to say about that?
Well, the 5 love languages it was a bestseller, New York Times bestseller, probably one of the top books of all time, and it's written by Dr. Gary Chapman, who is he speaks from a Christian perspective, his own marriage relationship as well as those he's counseled professionally, and what he's done is he's taken observations that he's seen over the years and through research, and has found that there are different ways that people give and receive love. And very often the way you give love is not the same way that your spouse would instinctively give love. And so the 5 love languages will allow you to be educated on different ways, 5 primary ways that people prefer to be shown love, because you can do things for your spouse that you think are important. You go to work, bring home money, spend time together, and your spouse still may not be happy. Your spouse still may not feel loved. So you may be doing everything that you know to do for your spouse. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are successfully giving them love in a way that they can receive it and it actually meets their needs.
Right.
And it's not a good idea to kind of guess what you think your spouse wants. That's not really fair. The best thing to do is to ask your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And if your spouse isn't sure, then there's a quiz online where it breaks down. It lets you say what your preferences are it makes you choose what are ways you would prefer for, out of these 4 activities or 4 ways that someone would give you love, what would be your favorite of those 4? So it's a series of questions like that. And once you answer those questions and you score it yourself, you will see what your primary love language is. Everybody likes to be loved in the various ways that we're going to talk about, but everybody also has a primary love language. And once you know what your primary love language is, you can communicate that to your spouse.
Right.
and vice versa. Your spouse can communicate that to you so that both of you actually feel loved. And before we go into those specific 5 love languages, I do want to say that the book is worth reading. It's online, honestly, and you can get a summary of it really anywhere online if you type in 5 love languages explained or 5 love language quiz. All of that, you're going to get to a place where you can make use of that information and learn more about it. But the book is very much worth the read. And looking at some of Dr. Gary Chapman's speeches and teachings online, they're very helpful. I can't imagine that, excuse me, you wouldn't benefit from it. But the thing I wanted to say is that he talks about in the beginning of the book how love can be instinctual at first. You know, you have that chemistry with somebody, you feel it, they feel it, and you both sense that it's sort of a feeling, kind of the butterflies in the stomach, or that
Infatuation.
yeah, that level of that early level where you start to feel like this person is special to me. You know, and maybe they're feeling the same about me, and you kind of grooving with each other. That is a form of love. But it's important to know that kind of love does not last. That is an early phase of love. It comes and goes. And that's something I absolutely did not know for a long time. Is did you know?
Mm-hmm.
Really? How did you know?
Because I'm a health teacher, and we went through that.
So y'all teach that in school?
Mm-hmm. I learned it in college.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't good at practicing it, but I learned it in college that the 5 stages of relationships. But that's another topic. All right. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Well, I didn't have a clue. He didn't share that information with me. So I thought that the way you feel in love, you know, throughout your dating, I really thought that would last, and that would last for the length of the relationship. And if that was gone, then something was wrong. And I think a lot of people probably would agree with being able to relate to that, is thinking that you're supposed to always feel butterflies towards that person. You're supposed to always feel that kind of ooey gooey feel good love all the time. Y'all back me up if you understand what I'm talking about here, or if you kind of were under the same misconception. But this book teaches that is the early phase of love. Even, you know, the birds and the bees go through that. You know, it's just chemical, you know, and that stage can last for a long time. But after a while, that feeling isn't as strong, especially once you start merging your lives together.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a conscious choice. And you need to be aware that love is a choice.
It's an action. It is.
It is a choice that you make. And so as your relationship matures, in making the choice to make the relationship last and to choose to love your spouse, these 5 love languages give you tools for you to use in order to love your spouse more effectively. You have to get some skills. Everything doesn't come natural. And the way you grew up and the way you received love growing up in your household might be very different from your spouse's experiences. And you have to acknowledge that if you want your love to grow. Because if you keep trying to love your spouse by giving them gifts and just showering your spouse with gifts, and your spouse don't care anything about gifts, you're not making them feel loved. You're just exhausting yourself, exhausting your resources, and not recognizing that your spouse is not receiving what you're giving because that's simply not their language. You speak in Chinese to somebody who speaks Spanish.
And they may appreciate you giving them gifts, you know, and we'll get into the discussion after a while, but what is considered in Dr. Chapman's book, he uses a word called the love tank, or a phrase called the love tank. If you're not filling that love tank after it's empty, then you may feel a separation from your spouse.
Yeah.
I mean, you may be doing everything except for their love language, and their tank is not being filled.
Or not enough of their love language. So, for example, if you are, your love language, that the way you're giving love is physical touch, and you're very touching and affectionate with your spouse all the time.
So we're getting into the discussion now, right? with that.
No, what you want me to slow down, or you
No,
want
I'm
me to do
saying if
something
you
different?
physical touch, you can go ahead and start. You want talking about them if you want to.
Okay, I was giving an example. You can go on into it.
I mean, physical stuff. You start with that rule.
So there are 5
Right.
love languages, one of which is physical touch. And physical touch is not just sex. Because a lot of times people will think, oh, physical touch, that means sex is my love language. No, sex is not a love language. Physical touch can be being near your spouse, holding hands. It can be sitting near each other and touching, or just constantly or frequently wanting the person next to you to touch you. It could be, rub on the back. It can be a touch to the face. That's a very intimate thing. But for some people, they need that type of affection shown to them for them to feel loved. They don't feel loved by other ways of showing love that you might. It may not be the words you say, but are you gonna hold me? Are you gonna comfort me? Are you giving me hugs and kisses? Are you physically giving me touching me physically? That's what makes me feel loved. The warmth of your body on mine, that's what makes me feel loved. If physical touch is my primary love language. And it's important to know that the absence of that physical touch for someone whose primary love language is physical touch, the absence of that physical touch communicates a lack of love.
Right.
And so it's not just giving that person, it's also not depriving them of that. That's so important for them to feel loved. So you're being physically separated from that person, or not taking the time to give that person some type of touch every day. That person's love tank, and in the book he compares it to a gas tank.
Right.
So you have the needle on the gas tank that can be full all the way to empty. So you want to keep your spouse's love tank on full, because if you're not giving them that physical touch that they need, their tank may be moving towards E. Their needle moves towards E, but you can fill that tank up by giving them that type of physical touch that they're longing for. They need to feel that. Okay? So that's physical touch.
All right. Words of affirmation is another one. Is when you say positive stuff about your spouse that's about them. Today, you look good, boo. Your hair looks good. Your makeup as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So when you're telling them what you see or you notice about them, that lets them know that you are paying attention to them. That lets them know that, okay, he said something good or she said something good about me today. And that helps to stroke the confidence of your spouse. And when you use certain words, that's actually what's filling up their tank. You got to continue to use the words and use phrases, and just continue to and things that they like. Don't go saying giving backhand compliments like, I like them shoes, but they sure are big on your feet. Don't do that.
Because that'll do the opposite.
Say what you want.
Yeah, instead of making them feel loved. Because just like words are powerful to that person whose primary love language is words of affirmation, words are powerful in a negative way as well. So giving them lots of negative criticism is the fastest way to get that person's love tank on E, because they will take that more heavily than someone who doesn't value words as much. And so you have to be responsible with your spouse's heart. You have to be responsible with what their preference is. Make their preference your go-to, your primary way of showing them love. It's up to you. It's a choice.
Right.
And you're choosing not to do what your spouse needs, that's a choice as well, towards the negative. Okay, so words of affirmation, that's probably yours, right?
Yeah.
Some people's change. I don't think they're supposed to, but sometimes it can be hard to pin a person down. So the test is helpful in pinning a person down to what their love language is, so that we can be sure of what a person's love language is. So I have to ask every time we do this lesson.
I don't know why people.
So that's your primary love language?
Primary love language. I've settled on that one.
Okay.
Even though when you take the test, some of your love language may be percentage points, very small percentage points away from each other. So you got that primary one that may give you a percentage of 36%, and then your next one
percentages or
it comes out in
numbers?
percentages.
Okay.
We hadn't taken it in a long time,
No,
but it
we
does
haven't.
come out in percentages. So, my primary one for me right now is words of affirmation. You know. See, I didn't have a problem with that, when I was coaching football, because you always got a pat on the back for what you do. If you're winning games, good job, coach. We love Coach Brinson. But, when I stepped into the principalship, you don't get it as much.
Well, that's outside the relationship. We're not talking about
No, I'm
that.
just saying, words of affirmation. It works not only into the marriage relationship, but it works in other places too.
Right.
So I'm just putting that example out there.
Okay.
But with my wife, with her learning that my love language is words of affirmation, she's been doing a lot of pumping me up lately. And I appreciate it.
And it makes you feel like a big man.
Man, I'm a big man. It's the truth, y'all.
All right, so well, and to be transparent too, the flip side of that is true, the criticism.
Oh yeah.
And so that was a problem early on in our relationship, because I can find some criticism. That's not hard for me at all. But what I found out is that's a fast way to tear him down. Some people, it just don't bother as much. Honestly, criticism don't bother me a whole lot. I kind of seek out criticism. I want people to tell me what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. And so, but once again, you can't necessarily assume that how you process something or what you prefer is true for your spouse. And so when you learn more about your spouse, you can get better at actually communicating with them that way.
Yeah, you can. And see, the thing about that, like you just said, if you're going to do something to tear somebody down, they take it personal. It's a personal attack.
Right, if that's their primary love.
Right. And, some people don't lay down with personal attacks. They attack back. And that causes the problem. Not just being like, okay, she's criticizing me, so I'm trying to figure out why I'm being criticized. Instead of doing that, we just found ourselves in some big old arguments.
Yeah, and it breaks down the communication.
Yeah.
Because well, for us, that's what happened. It
Right.
causes a breakdown in communication, because I'm trying to point out what's wrong so we can fix what's wrong, but he's hearing it as criticism, which makes him kind of close his availability to even hear the good in what I'm saying, because all he heard was the negative side of it. But without having the skills to recognize that, okay, your particular spouse, my spouse, does not do well with verbal criticism, you can address a problem, but you've got to do it in a way that's going to be receptive and be heard by him. And so that's where the marriage skills come in, and figuring out how to communicate with him so that I'm not getting him in a defensive position because he's feeling unloved or unappreciated. That was a big thing, I think.
And recognizing that my feelings were hurt was not something that I wanted to admit early on in the relationship, because okay, you're trying to hurt my feelings, I'm gonna try to hurt yours too.
Yes.
It was just that immature. So we've come a long way from that. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're here talking to you about it, and hopefully you can get out of that stage of doing that to each other. Okay.
Yeah, and learn to be more effective.
Right.
All right, another. Well, I'll talk about mine. My primary. I really have two, and I really can't separate the two. And every time I take the test, these two usually come out pretty equal for me. I know you're supposed to have one primary, and my primary is probably acts of service, but quality time is right there with it. So I'll talk about acts of service, and then you talk about quality time.
That's fine.
All right. So acts of service is when someone it feels loved when you help them with their responsibilities, and so that can be like I always am wanting him to take my stuff into the building for work or whatever, or get something. I always want him to run errands for me. It makes my life easier. And the fact that he's willing to do it, and to do it willingly with a good attitude, because I don't want it with a bad attitude. You can keep that.
That comes with maturity too.
Because that's because if you're gonna do it with a bad attitude, that's not showing me love. You just acting stank, and I don't have to deal with it. That's really the perspective I would take, and then it would have me up in arms. You ain't got to do nothing for me, because I can get it done by myself. I'm just giving you the privilege of helping me, and in my mind, with acts of service, that is a privilege. But anyway, neither here nor there. I get a little off topic sometimes, but acts of service, that's what it is helping out with the person's responsibility, helping out at home, washing dishes. Oh my gosh, that's a wonderful thing to do. That really makes me feel like you care about the things that I care about. Right. It makes me feel like you want to lighten my load so that I can feel free, feel good, feel better in general. And it allows me to be freed up to spend quality time with you. If we both get the work done around the house, that frees us to have some quality time together. So to me, the two kind of go hand in hand, acts of services and quality time. But that's the ticket for me, is the acts of services. Help me out. And it's even better if you help me out without me having to ask. Or if I ask and you have a good attitude about helping me. That's really the main ways that I look for you to show love.
Right. And the next one is quality time. And when you're doing quality time with each other, that could be something, like sitting down and having an intimate talk without the TV or cell phones or any distraction, the children, any distraction, just you and your spouse sitting down and enjoying a conversation or a talk. It could be something in your future goals, something that's going to be enjoyable for both of you at the same time. As far as quality time, and quality time involves talking.
It don't have to.
Well, just sitting there looking at each other.
Yes,
that's
quality time.
That's quality time. Just sitting there, just looking at each other.
You can look at each other or not, but just being together, or even physically sitting together, just being somewhere. Even like how you like to play games and stuff together. That's quality time.
I believe action needs to be with quality time.
But that's your opinion now. That's your opinion. You can't force it on nobody else.
I ain't forcing on nobody. That's all we got to give. We got the mic. So that's what we're talking about. Quality time is great when it involves both people. And that may not be your love language, but you can enjoy quality time with your spouse. You find out a lot of good information about your spouse, things that happened when they were children, and you're just sitting there and you're just kind of reminiscing and just talking in general, and you're just having a good time with one another. So as long as you continue to want to have quality time with each other, you got to, and I think quality time is one of those that you got to plan.
Yeah.
You gotta learn how to plan your quality time, because you can let your day get away from each other. Your day can be so long and so tiring that you may neglect your spouse who needs quality time with you. So if that's the case, you have to create some time for that person.
Right. And see, that was a problem with us early on in marriage too. See, looking back, we can see where we had several things working against us that we just didn't know.
Right.
So see, if you're gone from sun up to sundown, working and spending time outside of the home, and there's no quality time spent together until you don't have anything else to do. Because I would say that all the time. Well, you ain't got no time for home until you got everything else taken care of.
And see, that also goes to the fact when you were talking, back in those days, that you felt like you were doing everything. Because if acts of service was your quality time, I bet I don't know, but you were thinking, if he was here, he could do this and help me out with this.
Well, it's just a lot.
It just felt like you were doing everything by yourself.
Well, I kind of was. Except for the midnight feedings.
And the bills.
Okay, you can get credit for some of them. I pay bills too.
Yeah, we do. So
you gonna try to defend that? Don't try to defend it. Don't go back.
So everything we done back then, like you said, it kind of worked against us. My job, it was a lot of stuff that worked against us. So now we're to the point where We can plan quality time. We plan a date night every week, or we got something going on the weekend. We still try to plan that date night, some part of that weekend where we
Yeah.
just spend that time with each other.
It has to be a priority.
Hmm.
But we had to learn that.
We did.
And we also learned that date night once a month was not good enough for us. Some people, that may be enough.
Right.
But we found out that was too far in between for us having that type of interaction. Some intimate quality time. And I don't mean by sex or intimate. I mean, because you can be having sex and still not meeting the needs of intimacy.
Right.
So that's not at all what I'm referring to. I'm saying us spending some time together, to where some quality time together, to where we can focus on each other. We can talk about, our lives together, or whatever's going on, kind of get each other's opinions on things, and just relate things you do when you date, spending that kind of time together. And so we had to make a very conscious effort to do that, because otherwise we weren't meeting each other's needs.
Right.
And I think both of us needed the quality time, because I feel like you were missing out on that too. Because I don't think you were okay without it.
No, even though it was not my primary love language, it was still something that you need to make the marriage relationship connect and bond together. And one statement our pastor made yesterday in his sermon was, love is the glue that holds the relationship together.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that have to continue to be reapplied.
Yeah, well, it takes some skills in order to love effectively.
Right.
Because you can love somebody but not know how to express that love in an effective way in which they can receive it. And it's the same as not giving them love.
Right.
And so it's important to get some skills to understand how to be successful in that.
All right. And the last one we're going to talk about tonight, and this may be the first one on some people's list, is receiving gifts. I think both of us like gifts, but it's not one of those things we have to feel loved by the other person.
But for some people it is.
Yeah, it is.
And it's not about the cost of the gift. It's not about it being, it's about the thoughtfulness behind it. The fact that you took some time out to give me something it shows me that you were thinking about me before or in my absence, and you chose something to convey that to me in my absence, and then you give it to me. Then that makes me, it's a symbol or a token, and it's something that person can go back and look at and remember. Every time they look at that purse, they remember that you thought about them when you were on a vacation, or that you bought that for me, and on just a regular old Tuesday, you sent me a bouquet of flowers, or you gave me this card, or you picked a flower in the yard on the way in the house. Because I remember, and I don't know why I remember this just now, my daddy used to give my mom the first rose that would come on the bush. She had a rose bush in our front yard. And so I remember he would, somehow I remember thinking that was a big deal between them, him to give her that rose. I don't know. As a child, you see things differently, but that would be an expression, that gift that was given. So, there are lots of ways to show love, but you have to find out what your spouse needs.
Right.
And so you can't judge by the way you want to be shown love. It doesn't work that way. You have to find out what your spouse desires and give them what they want, not what you want them to have. And it's not fair for you to get upset because your spouse don't appreciate that you buy them gifts when they're looking for words of affirmation. And you're trying to give them gifts to show love, and they're not appreciating the gifts because they're sick of getting gifts because you're not giving them. They still feel empty because you're not giving them those words of affirmation.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you neglect the other four. Once you know which one is your spouse's primary, still use those other four ways to communicate love, but just know how important it is to stay on top of keeping your spouse's love tank full by giving them their preferred way to receive love.
Right.
It's very important. So we also encourage you to look back at the messages that are posted on our church Facebook page There's some very powerful lessons on love, the volatility of love. That was one yesterday. It was um, that's a message you need to hear.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, very informative, different way of thinking and processing love as God intended for it to be. So we encourage you to go back and look at that lesson from Sunday. That would have been the 28th, August
Right.
28th.
On our church website.
On our church Facebook page, or at Finest Bush Jr. At his Facebook page as well. So,
and just to, as we're finishing up tonight, because we went through all 5 of the love languages, Sheena made a very good point. She's one of our teachers in our church for the youth ministry. Along with this book, The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman, reading our bishop's book,
yeah,
Created to Love But Don't Know How.
Yep.
Very informative book. It's a pretty easy read, and it gives a lot of good information.
It is.
If you want that book, I think that book is on our church website too. Okay. So yeah, get that book and look into it, and it will help you get a little bit more understanding about some of the things that you went through in your life, and you may not know how to love your spouse. And just learning to love your spouse can create a way to rekindle, replenish, and just, you may want to renew your vows after you do it. So, just look into that book, and hopefully it'll be something that can help you out.
Our church website, we've mentioned it a couple times, so if someone would type it in for us, it is www.fbjm.org, right? Yes. www. I sound like crickets. You were not paying attention to me. www.fbjm, and that's for Finest Bush Junior Ministries, fbjm.org. And you'll see the image of the church come up, and just explore the website. There's a good bit on there. Thank you, Sheena. So that's what we have for you tonight. It was and thank you to Carmela Jefferson, and somebody else who I can't remember right off, who asked us about reviewing this topic. We do make reference to the 5 love languages throughout our teachings, and some people who may not have been with us as long as others were wanting us to explain the 5 love languages a little more, and we've always said we need to review it at least once a year,
right?
So that everybody, because we reference it so much. Get the book if you don't have it. To tell you the truth, I buy it from Goodwill. Anytime I go, Goodwill has the books, the book section. They almost always have the 5 love languages in there, where people recycle their books or give them away or whatever. It's a bestseller, very common book, so it's often in there. You can get it for a couple of bucks, and I buy them and give them away to people. So,
and a partnership to this lesson, the 5 love languages of love is the 5 languages of apology.
Yeah,
we may review that next week.
Yeah, we have gone over that before, but that's we found that one helpful.
Yeah, to us.
To us, very definitely, because an apology is not just an apology, and your heart might be in the right place, but if your spouse didn't receive that apology, you're gonna still have some problems. So
issues.
Yeah, because I know somebody like me. I'm like, oh, that don't mean nothing.
And the thing about me is, I grew up with, I didn't grow up with an apologetic spirit, because if I didn't feel like I did anything to you, why am I apologizing? But that lesson taught me different. Quit grunting to the people. Let them go.
Listen, I have some experiences around here.
All right.
All right. Thank you, guys. We love y'all. We appreciate you.
Love y'all. Appreciate y'all coming through for us and listening to us.
Go ahead.
To the gentlemen, I just want to say, I love y'all guys. And, I had some young fellas to tell me that they love me and appreciate the information that we bring each week. And I love y'all too. So with that said,
share the message. We didn't say that. I want to emphasize it. Shouldn't I say that?
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to emphasize the share. Y'all do a good job of sharing, but for anybody who's watching it coming in late, go ahead and share it so we can get the message out and help as many people as possible. And somebody look like Pastor Steele is liking and loving, and we appreciate all the hearts and the love. So that's it. I'm not going to say anything else.
All right. With that said, from the lady and the coach, we love y'all. Good night.